Hey, what's going on, everybody? Your man Big T back on Talent Talks, and we're back with Dr. Bruce Lipton in the biology of belief. We're getting there, and we're gonna carry on where we left off. And here we go. Facebook was a glint in a Harvard undergrad's eye when I first wrote this book. 10 years later, I found a young woman born decades after World War II on Facebook who echoes Roosevelt's insight. Lupithia Herman, an off-sighted artist who posts inspirational words with pictures on Facebook, offers this simple wisdom. You know why it's hard to be happy? It's because we refuse to let go of the things that make us sad. Whoa. Think about that for a minute. I believe this may be one of the more important insights in learning how to control the negative effects of stress. People who live through negative and potentially devastating life experiences generally hold on to their fears and their stressful memories that compromise their health and longevity. Pause there. One of the things that I was seeing is that some people are afraid to let go of the things that happened in their life because then they don't know who they are. That's who they are. It's part of their character. They're that traumatized person with anxiety and then if they let go of that, then who are they? Right? So I just heard that. Though I believe it's hugely important to let go of our fear and stress-provoking memories, I also want to emphasize that not all stress is bad. In fact, there's a good form of stress known as eustress that has beneficial psychological and or physical effects. Engaging in taxing exercise is one form of beneficial stress that enhances health and strengthens the body. Of course, not all sports have positive effects. For Roman gladiators, the health benefits of exercise were no doubt completely offset by the negative psychological stress of knowing they would die if they lost. Also, in some life-threatening situations, such as when we are physically attacked or when we are trying to manage a car spinning out of control, the stress response summoned up by the HPA axis can save one's life by calling forth almost superpowers of strength and lightning-fast reactivity. That is the good side of the distress coin. Little story, I was on my way driving past this one area, and there was a car in front of me, and I wasn't, as far as I can recollect, I wasn't following too close. And I looked just for a second, and this individual in front of me decided to stop for a pedestrian. So I look back. It was brake, gas, left, and around. Thank God the pedestrian didn't decide to cross. There was no crosswalk there, just so you know. So, okay. This lady just decided to be kind and stop, and obviously my little glance left because there was no crosswalk there. I shouldn't have had to worry about being prepared to stop. But yeah, that's crazy. And then the other interesting thing I heard is that you want to know why your life flashes before your eyes before you die is because your brain is going through all your memory banks, to see if there's anything it can do to save you. I fucked up. Pardon my language. Anyways, the bad side of the coin is when our bodies become chronically stimulated by misperceptions. Unfortunately, our stress managing systems cannot distinguish whether a brain-directed response is derived from a real or imagined fear. Imagined fear. And sadness that we can't let go. This is dangerous to our health because we maintain the get-set posture I mentioned earlier. In these situations, the stress response becomes chronic and results in a sustained release of adrenaline glucocorticoid hormone cortisol. Overstimulation of this glucocorticoid hormone is directly linked to significant damage and long-lasting functional changes in the brain. For example, chronic stress-related illness such as PTSD are associated with alterations in the volume of the brain's gray and white matter. The region of the hippocampus associated with memory and emotions shrinks, as does the amygdala. The brain's threat center, the amygdala, the brain's threat center. These observed brain alterations are believed to contribute to the creation of hardwired stress-linked pathways between the hippocampus and the amygdala that result in a vicious behavioral cycle of maintaining a constant fight-or-flight state of mind. Ooh. If you ever had a boss stuck in a constant panic, the true boss from hell, or if you've ever had sleepless nights worrying rather than working on a deadline you fear you might not meet, you know how hardwired chronic stress can become. They are also damaging to children. Children who develop chronic stress behaviors are more likely to experience learning impairment and psychological dysfunction, such as anxiety and mood disorders, later in life. Chronic stress also depresses the immune system by impairing the function of glucocorticoid receptors normally used to inhibit or shut down inflammatory responses. This action conserves bodily energy to engage in a fight-or-flight response for what mind perceives as life-threatening stress. Interfering with the behavior of these immune receptors results in a dysfunction referred to as glucocorticoid receptor resistance, GCR, in which the duration and intensity of inflammatory responses increases, heightening the risk for asthma and other autoimmune diseases and encouraging the onset progression of chronic inflammatory diseases such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. GCR is associated with people who experience chronic stress, such as parents of children with cancer, spouses of brain cancer patients, and persons reporting high levels of loneliness. Despite the risk of side effects, which range from dementia to premature death, drugs are still biomedicine's go-to remedies for stress and anxiety, and that includes animals as well as people. In 2014, Iowa State University College of Veterinary Medicine researchers found that administering an anti-inflammatory drug to cattle before shipping them long distance relieved transportation stress, as evidenced by stress biomarkers including decreased cortisol. But first-rate research about the effectiveness of non-drug remedies is accumulating, and the research fuels my relentless optimism that one day non-drug remedies will prevail. A number of studies in peer-reviewed journals have found that relaxation response, which researchers define as the physiological and psychological state opposite to stress or flight or fight response, alleviates symptoms of anxiety and many other disorders, and also affects factors such as heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen consumption, and brain activity. And a groundbreaking study published in 2013 documented for the first time that this physiologic state of deep rest induced by practices like meditation, yoga, deep breathing, and prayer produces immediate changes in the expression of genes involved in immune function, energy metabolism, and insulin secretion, results that should impress even the most skeptical biomedical researchers. Many studies have shown that mind-body interventions like the relaxation response can reduce stress and enhance wellness in healthy individuals, and counteract the adverse clinical effects of stress in conditions like hypertension, anxiety, diabetes, and aging. Said pioneering mind-body research and co-author of the study, Herbert Benson, MD, now for the first time we've identified the key physiological hubs through which these benefits might be induced. When would we ever know about this type of stuff? Not saying that we have to, but when would we ever find, unless this is your field? Oh my God. I lost the page. Oh mon Dieu. Pardon me for a minute. Found it. We're on page 160. Other researchers are exploring the implications of Luthia Herman and Franklin D. Roosevelt's wisdom that I wrote about at the beginning of this chapter's update. Because holding on to our fears and our pain is fundamental, underlying determinant for generating chronic stress behaviors. Is it possible that love, the polar opposite of fear, could be an antidote for stress and its related diseases? Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, to monitor brain response, researchers at the University of Exeter addressed this question. They compared the brain response of 42 adults who viewed images of people expressing love and emotional support and images of threatening, angry, or fearful faces. The experimental group was briefly shown images of affection and emotional support that were then followed by threatening pictures. Control subjects were only shown the threatening images. In the control group, threatening images elicited high activity in the amygdala, the brain region that monitors threats. Participants in the experimental group, who were first presented with pictures expressing love and then shown the threatening images, showed no response in the amygdala to what should have been stress-provoking. The researchers hypothesized that the neurological response to images of love suppresses the brain's threat mechanisms, citing PTSD, which is characterized by hypervigilance to threatening information. Lead researcher Anki Karl said these new research findings may help to explain why, for example, successful recovery from psychological trauma is highly associated with levels of perceived social support individuals receive. We are now building on these findings to refine existing treatments for PTSD to boost feelings of being safe and supported in order to improve coping with traumatic memories. A number of studies confirm the healing influence that loving relationships and interactions have in our lives. As acclaimed neurobiologist Dr. Daniel Siegel reported in the New York Times, scientific studies of longevity, medical and mental health, happiness, and even wisdom point to supportive relationships as the most robust predictor of these positive attributes in our lives across the lifespan. I think I have a book by him. Another study by University of Virginia neuroscientist James Cone assessed the role of social contact in regulating emotional responses in the face of various stressors. In Cone's essay, he gave an electric shock to the ankles and recorded the brain activity of 16 women in 3 different situations, while holding the hand of a loved one, while holding the hand of an anonymous male, while not holding a hand at all. The stress test registered the woman's anxiety before and pain level during the shocks. When not holding another person's hands, the woman's anxiety and pain levels were elevated as expected. When holding their partner's hand, the negative influence of the shock was significantly reduced. Holding the hand of a stranger resulted in a much more limited reduction of the stress response. Strikingly, the degree of a woman's ability to reduce stress while holding hands with her loved one varied by the quality she attributed to her relationship. The higher a woman perceived the quality of her relationship, the lower were her scores on anxiety and pain readings following the shock. There was no such response variation associated with the holding of a stranger's hands. In a healthy relationship, holding your partner's hand is enough to lower blood pressure, ease stress responses, improve health, and diminish physical pain. I'm the last one to need convincing on that point because, as I described in my 2013 book, The Honeymoon Effect, my partner Margaret and I have created a wonderful, loving relationship that helps inoculate me from stress. Also, because of my history of bad relationships, I am a walking, talking example of the overwhelming science chronicling neuroplasticity, more in the next chapter, that has shown over and over that is never too late. The brain is constantly undergoing structural and functional alterations in response to the influence of life and learning experiences. When it comes to stress, the answer to the ever young and energetic Tina Turner's hit song, What's Love Got to Do With It, is everything. The creation of loving bonds assures the mind that when we are threatened, there will be somebody there to throw us a life preserver. That frees us, as it did me, from the need to observe our lives through filters of fear because we know we will be supported unconditionally. Individuals who are disconnected from social relationships and community, on the other hand, perceive they are alone and adrift in an ocean where no one ever comes to their aid. Now I'd like to circle back to the beginning of this update to Luthia Herman's message. You know why it's hard to be happy? It's because we refuse to let go of the things that make us sad. And conclude with the story of Scarlett Lewis, a mother whose life embodies the wisdom of those words. Scarlett's youngest son, Jesse, was one of the 20 children murdered in the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre in Newton, Connecticut. Brave Jesse helped save the lives of many of his classmates by encouraging them to run while he stayed behind to protect his teacher. Both he and his beloved teacher were killed. Oh, that's sad, man. Fucking people gotta kill people. What the hell? Smarten up. Listen to Talent Talks. Get better. Hey? Before going to school in what may have been a premonition of the day's tragedy, 6-year-old Jesse wrote on his home chalkboard, nurturing healing love. Working through her grief in the midst of the emotional devastation felt by all parents who lost children, Scarlett embraced Jesse's word and consciously chose a different way to manage her distress. While many parents vented their pain through anger, blame, and overwhelming grief, Scarlett went on an alternative path by deciding to consciously choose love to come to terms with this heinous crime. To send her message into the world, Scarlett founded the Jesse Lewis Choose Love Foundation, whose stated mission is to create awareness in our children and our communities that we can choose love over anger, gratitude over entitlement, and forgiveness and compassion over bitterness. The foundation's goal is to help manifest a more peaceful and loving world. Scarlett's efforts in advancing love to resolve the world's problems became her path to healing. Scarlett represents a living example of the powerful opportunity to heal offered in the final words of Jesus. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I'm going to end it there too, but we're on chapter 7 next, so stay tuned. I feel like that last bit, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. If you really begin to switch yourself and work on yourself, you begin to see the self-perpetuating traps that individuals around us put themselves in by the conversations that they have, by the type of thoughts that they have, their actions, their demeanor, their mood, their behavior, their reactions. And it's sad to see, really. It really is sad to see someone put themselves through something knowing that there's a way out and that there is a better way. There's a possibly a better way. I'm not saying this is the right way, but what I am saying is that working on myself has completely changed my life. And I won't go back. I won't go back to just letting this thing, the pre-programs. I won't go back to that. And I kind of experienced a little bit of that today through certain situations and experiences I went through at work and after work, or etc. So become mindful, become aware, become conscious. Work on yourself. It's the best thing you can do for yourself and for the others around you, because once you begin to start to change, everything around you has to change, because you're changing. You're changing your actions, you're changing your behavior, you're changing the way you respond. You're not reacting anymore, you're thoughtfully responding, right? So now everything has to change because it's not the same as you used to respond. It's different. It's new. It has to be new. There's a new answer right in front of you. So, and that to me is mind-blowing in itself. To know that all you got to do is just flip a switch, change your perspective 180 degrees, and it's a whole new world by changing your mind. And it's wild. It is really wild, because there's a beautiful world out there full of tons of opportunities and excitement and love and kindness. You're just choosing not to see it. And that's a sad fact. Anyways, thank you for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate every single one of you that does. And I'll catch you at the next one.